Chapter 37, A Tiny Megaphone. "My turn!" shouted Solo. Godot grinned. "Better get the conch shell," he telepathed with a twinkle in his eyes. And then he bounded off to have a swim. "Ready?" asked Solo. "Yes!" shouted everyone. Okay, Chapter 37, A Tiny Megaphone. "Dodger!" shouted the little voice. Solo shone his headlight down onto Jax's wrist. As they peered down, they could see the purple popcorn leaping up and down and shouting through its tiny megaphone. "Dodger! Dodger!" "It's my dad!" exclaimed Dodger. "How did this happen? What can we do?" "I'm so glad you're safe," he said through his tears. I think we'd better say he whispered through his tears. "Where's Dorrit, Dodge?" asked the little man. "Is she okay?" At this, Dodger wept even more. "No," he sobbed. "We tried to rescue her last night, but they've taken her to the thief boarding house. They've taken her to the thief boarding house. There were guards in the room, so we couldn't get inside. One of the rooms has a secret tunnel. We're going to try again tonight." The little man sat down, his shoulders hunched over. "Don't worry," he said, suddenly sitting up straight. "If I can get back to my own size, I'll go there straight away and demand to have her back." "They've been saying you abandoned us," said Dodger. "Don't worry. Oh, sorry. They've been saying that you abandoned us," said Dodger. "Rubbish," said the little man. "I'm Jute Helpman. The authorities will have more than they bargained for if they're hoping to accuse me of that." Sorry, I think we need to say "I'm Jute Helpman," as if I'd abandon my children. "The authorities will have more than they bargained for if they're hoping to accuse me of that." Dodger knelt down and smiled at his dad. "Good to see you," said Jute through his little megaphone. "Now, Jax, I'm a friend of your parents. I'm telling you this in case we get separated. Can you please take me back into the book? As far as I know, I can only return to my normal size in there. And if I've come out once, hopefully I can escape again." Okay, I've changed some of that again. "What do you mean, take you back into a book?" asked Dodger. "Long story," said Jax. Toll and I have just had our first training session to become imaginicians. We found your dad inside a book," said Toll, "but we didn't know it was him." "What?" asked Bullard. "Squashed inside its pages?" Jax laughed. "No," she said. We somehow became drawn into the story of the book, into its world. Like a virtual world," added Toll. "Like going into a computer game or a movie." Bullard nodded. "So you have to go back there?" he asked. Dodger looked horrified. "Dad," he whimpered, "please don't go. Can't we do something for you here?" "I don't think so," said Jute. Jax looked sadly at Dodger. "I'm sorry, Dodge," she said. "I'll take good care of him, I promise. We'll find a way to get him back to normal, but it's safest if you don't come." Jax turned back to Toll. "Will you come with me?" she asked, her eyes brimming with tears. No, I don't think her eyes brim with tears. Jax is quite strong. "But could you come with me?" she asked, turning back to Toll. "I can't bear the thought of going in there alone." "Of course," said Toll. "Why not me as well?" asked Jax. Why not me as well?" asked Dodge. "It could be dangerous," said Jax. "We've been there and we know it's part of our training, but you could get stuck inside the book." "Forever," said Toll, looking worried. Okay, said Solo, you guys go back into the book, and while you're gone, we're going to think of a way to get our hands on Isla's necklace. Petrel put her arms around Jack's. Please be careful, she said. I've never met anyone like you. I'd hate to meet you and then never see you again. Jack smiled. Of course, she said. Ice witches are most determined. Petrel grinned. Good, she said. Okay, said Solo. As soon as these guys have gone, I'm asking my parents for advice. Petrel nodded, sitting next to Dodger. They were both so close to finding their parents, but the pressure was tearing them in two. Well, I need to change that because they've actually found their parents. They need to get them back to the right size. They were both so close to having their parents back in their lives. The pressure of waiting was tearing them in two. Solo telepathed his mother. Can you meet me in the old dungeons? I'm near the fountain end. It's urgent. Within minutes, Nell had arrived. There's an enchanted jacket for each of you, said Nell, handing them out. Bill made them. They should keep you safe. Petrel's elation was evident. Thank you, she said. We'll return them as soon as all of this is over. No need, said Nell. They're yours to keep. A gift from the Dew family. Petrel's eyes looked watery, but Solo knew how much he'd hate to be seen crying again, so he quickly changed the subject. Toll and Jax came back from their training, said Solo, but they had to go back into the book again. Already? Asked Nell. Dodger's dad was in the book, and he escaped with Toll and Jax, but he wasn't his normal size. Someone had shrunk him down and put him onto a bracelet. Jax and Toll didn't realise it was him until they arrived home. Dodger's dad is on Jax's bracelet? Asked Nell. Did she wear the bracelet here from the land of ice and fire? No, she put the bracelet on just before she left the book to come here. It's made of popcorn. Well, all except for Dodger's dad. She could have eaten him. She didn't realise that Jute was on it, explained Solo. Anyway, Jute thinks he knows how to get back to his normal size, but he had to go back into the book to do it. Nell shook her head. This is terrible, she said. The thieves are me-juicing people. Do you know about me-juicing? Asked Solo. Of course, but it was banned centuries ago. That's not all, said Petrel. We've got a picture of Isla wearing a necklace, although it's not ordinary. Petrel's voice became choked. Both my parents have been strung onto it. This is terrible, said Nell, her eyes wide. It makes sense, said Solo. Isla must be shrinking the parents to keep them away from their children. Even if they do escape, they're so tiny that they can't ever get home. They're imprisoned by their size. It's evil, said Nell. It is, said Dodger, his eyes red from crying. Your dad's Jute Helpman, right? Asked Nell. Dodger nodded. And he's with Toll and Jax, is he? Yes, he's been turned into a piece of popcorn on a bracelet, said Petrel. Oh, actually, he's not really popcorn, I don't think. Yes, he's been strung onto a bracelet made of popcorn, said Petrel, and my parents are in Drage, trapped as fake pearls on one of Isla Thieves' necklaces. Nell raised her eyebrows and sighed deeply. What an evil woman. Did you know that Vankro Snark's men and the Overlord threatened me? The children looked horrified. It's true, said Nell, looking especially at Petrel. I managed to evade them, but they are not good people. We need to be careful as we make our moves. We need to be careful as we make our next moves. Nell sat down on the earthen floor. Oh, there's one other thing, said Solo. I think Dodger's sprained his ankle. Nell looked at Dodger. You poor thing, she said. I'll have a look in a minute. Nell closed her eyes and looked as if she was crying, but she wasn't. The tunnel kids stared at her, wondering if she was all right. They were about to ask Solo what was wrong with his mother, but he'd shut his eyes too. It seemed like a good time to wish for magic to happen, especially when their rescue missions seemed so impossible. Solo was finding it hard to constantly fight off a desire to hate Isla Thieve with all his might. Ever since he'd realised that she was wearing Petrel's parents as jewellery, Solo had hated her even more. But that day, he was terrified to realise that he actually... Okay, just one moment. But that day, he was terrified to realise that he was actually wishing harm to Isla. He'd never liked her, of course, but after learning of her cruelty, Solo felt as if he wanted to see her harmed badly. The thoughts were looming so large in his mind that he could think of nothing else.